that there is no chance in the next 20 years of I don't know 20 years, but certainly in the next 10 years, I don't know, for many, many years, there is no chance of anything close to a significant number of Israelis that would agree to full right of return in the context of a peace agreement. The perhaps unfair reality is, and it's not equal, I mean, we all know that we Israelis have many more cards in our hands than do Palestinians, is that Palestinians will have to decide what is more important, insisting on the full right of return or saying we should go for a peace even though we're compromising on what we see as our rights. And I can't make the decision. I can only interpret the reality. Okay, okay, down here, and we'll keep on going around this way. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Salma. I'm Egyptian, also.
Wait for the microphone.
It's okay.
I'll repeat the question afterwards. Go ahead.
My question is, I guess, directed at your background as a rabbi. So what's the Jewish theological interpretation of Zionism and human rights in terms of how to treat people of other faith backgrounds? And to what extent do you think those religious standards are being
Thank
applied?
you. That's a great question. The question is, so where's the Jewish rabbinic point in all this, and in terms of looking at universal human rights and religion and all these kinds of things? I would argue that the greatest divide in the Jewish world today, at least the most important for me, is when I read the first verses of the Torah, of the Bible, and we read in Genesis that all human beings are created in God's image. I don't say that it just says Jews. It doesn't say just the rich. It makes a point of saying both men and women. So when I read that, and everything that flows from that, is that if every human being is created in God's image, everyone, that's the religious version of saying that every human being is endowed with certain inalienable rights and all that. Therefore, it becomes my obligation to defend every human being's human rights. That is the basis. Unfortunately, the other side of the divide is that there are those who all the traditions and laws in Judaism that have flown from that principle, what we call Ben Adam L'Chavaro, all the interpersonal commandments. There are those who say they're only for how we treat our fellow Jews, maybe not even all Jews, maybe even only the people that are in our own insular community. And that is a huge, huge divide within the Jewish world today. That's the basis, yeah. Yes.
My name is Julia Hurley. I'm with the American Association for Palestinian Equal Rights. I was in Gaza in December and spoke with many, many people. And, I mean, you talk about the situation being ripe for intifada, and I really saw it there, and just in the anger and the frustration and the sheer desperation. What do you see as kind of the next step in kind of easing the blockade of Gaza, in eventually eliminating the blockade so as possibly to kind of, calm the frustration and the desire towards intifada?
Well, it's a very good question, and obviously we haven't been very successful at this. If there is one, I see two rays of hope, although I wish it had not taken 9 deaths and so many people injured and this kind of stuff on both sides. We are seeing the world community focus on this a little bit more than they have up until now. There's always a question of whether that's going to be a flash in a pan or something that will be sustained. But as I said before, I do see a trend in the international community of where Israel is accustomed to these things blowing over, that it's not. And so there's some room for optimism there. And the other thing is that we've seen, even in the last week or so, since that Israel has been moving toward changing policy without admitting that they're changing policy. All right? So now, again, international law says that we have absolute right to check and try to prevent missiles, guns from coming into Gaza that will be used against us. And in fact, the organizers of the various votes, even before this latest flotilla, have always said, you want to board us and make sure there's not guns here. That's no problem. The issue is when you're banning cement and paper and chocolate and children's toys and coriander and so on and so forth and pasta, and we've seen now that they're still saying it's temporary and it's not a precedent and all this, but they're now starting to take a lot of these issues, all of these things off the banned list and everything, and so I'm hoping that between some of the Israelis who are saying, well, even if our best friends are upset with this, we have to rethink this, and some more determined world pressure, that there will be some substantial change that remains to be seen. The one thing for people, I think probably most people here realize this, but since we're on the topic, let me just say that when you hear Israeli spokespeople talking about the 100 or so trucks that come in a day, it's true. But what they don't tell you is how many need to come in. Okay, that's the question. It's not that they're just out and out lying. They're not giving you the full picture. So, although it's even a group and the Israeli Human Rights Organization that does the most work on this is called Gisha, and you can find their website. They've got very good information on this. They'll also acknowledge that it's hard to acknowledge what the real needs are, especially because you have additional complicating factors. It's not just what comes in, let in by Israel. There are all kinds of things that are coming in through the tunnels. And also, there's all kinds of goods in Gaza, which another result of the blockade is that nobody can afford. So you can have the stuff there, and no one can buy it. But the figures that Gisha uses is that to meet basic humanitarian needs, you would have to have about 2,400 trucks coming in a week, and on an average week you have somewhere between 500 and 700. Okay, and so that's an important thing whenever you hear people talking about the trucks coming in, to make sure that's put in the context of how much is needed and this kind of thing. Okay.
I have another question from the ante-room.
Okay.
I don't want to neglect those who are not right here in this room. This is a provocative but interesting question, which I think many have asked. Does the longevity, the strength, and the power of Judaism, which in many ways was the foundation of Islam and Christianity, depend upon an external threat? And if there is real peace, will the internal discordant aspects within the Jewish and Israeli community erupt and maintain conflict?
Some people have suggested that. Some people say that our the relative lack of anti-Semitism in this country exists, of course, but relative lack is our greatest undoing, and intermarriage and assimilation and all these kinds of things. There are many people in the Jewish community who say that we're safer in our ghettos and safer when we're facing an outside enemy. I'm willing to take that risk. I think that if we survived all these things for thousands of years, we can